microphone setup might be a little bit different, just in case you're wondering why you can't see the microphone, because normally you can. And I'm also filming in daylight, which is giving a bit of a reflection on the background, but that shouldn't be a big deal. So I hope you guys are doing well. I don't know if you've noticed, I've actually been trying to do a Pride theme month, if that makes any sense. I just thought, what better month to draw attention to such crime cases. Sorry about cars and stuff. Like I said, I am filming in the daytime. So yeah, please don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe, and hit that bell notification to get notified when I upload new videos. And without further ado, let's just get straight into today's case. So today's case is about someone called Cypress Ramos, or Cypress Ramos. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce the last name, but I'll just refer to them as Cypress. So this case took place just several months ago in Lubbock, Texas, and surprise, surprise, Lubbock, Texas police are saying one of their latest crimes involving a trans woman is not a hate crime. 21-year-old Latina trans woman Cypress was found deceased the morning of February 12th, 2022 in a Lubbock, Texas locked storage unit. But this is not a hate crime. Cypress's body was only discovered because a fire broke out at a storage place, and a neighbour to the unit called 911 and reported it around 11:30 a.m. This is when firefighters came to battle the blazing flames, and this would have been on the 2700 block of North Frankfurt Avenue, 3 days after Cypress's body was found. Cypress's mother had asked a friend of hers to drive her to where her daughter's body had been found. On their way back home around 1 a.m. in the morning, a vehicle pulled in front of the car, and Cypress's mom rode in it and slammed on its brakes, causing the car Cypress's mom was in to brake. Also, the two vehicles were on the highway and they both gathered up speed again. Then the other car came up alongside Cypress's mom. She was in the front passenger seat, and an unknown person in the other car pointed a pistol out of the car window and fired at Cypress's mom. But thankfully the shooter missed, and Cypress's mom and her friend were able to pull safely off the highway. They pulled into a restaurant parking lot to call police. And maybe this is what led police to feel that this wasn't a hate crime because of the attack on Cypress's family. Maybe the police just thought that this was basically some kind of vendetta against Cypress's family, and she was the first one that they targeted. Being a hate crime, the medical examiner said that Cypress had died from the impact of a hard object into her head, and Lubbock police arrested the man who leased the is until police showed him they had a surveillance video of the time in question. That's when Alan's story changed. Because Alan couldn't deny he was the person on the camera. On the footage shows Alan and another person pulling up to a storage unit in a pickup truck, and both Alan and the other person, presumed to be Cypress, got out of the truck, shut their doors and walked into the storage unit. About an hour and a half later, only Alan is seen leaving, and he padlocks the unit behind him, gets into his truck and he leaves. When police ask him what happened, Alan shrugs his shoulder and says, "Isn't it apparent? Apparent? If you want me to tell you what's apparent, Alan, I'd say you spent an hour and a half with the beautiful young trans woman in what time, who knows what you did. Sexually with her or to her, and then you bashed her head in and lit the storage unit on fire. Is that what's apparent?" He's not the brightest criminal, and police collected Alan's clothing and swabbed some blood that was on his leg. Alan told the police during the time in the storage unit he went to go to use the bathroom, and apparently when he came out, Cypress had started a fire. Then she started attacking him with a baseball bat. So all he did was defend himself, and he accidentally killed her while he was. Alan is being held on a $500,000 bail bond, and what friends have said of Cypress, they said she was just so sweet, and she was kind, and she was good to just about anyone she knew that smiled a lot. And they're gonna miss that smile. One of her friends made mention that Cypress was little, thin and not physically strong, and that there would be no way Cypress could have hit the guy in the storage unit with a bat or anything else. Another friend confirmed Cypress was, yes, very tiny, and they felt like they could wrap their arms around her 3 times. They also said Cypress wasn't about getting into other people's business, and she liked to live drama-free. Cypress was also well known in the Lubbock LGBTQ+ community there. Now sadly, that is basically all I have on the case of Cypress, because like I said, it only happened a few months ago. I've looked all over for updates on the case, but I guess it is still pretty much too soon to say. Maybe the police don't want to release certain information for whatever reason just yet, but I've decided that I would still cover this case because it needs to be Monica's response, John said he left Monica's place to go to the store and get some condoms, but when he got to his truck, he realised he left his jacket with his keys in his wallet in Monica's room. So he returned to her apartment and knocked on her door, and Monica greeted him at the door with his jacket. He put his jacket on, and when he got to his truck again, he found his keys, but his wallet was missing. John Casey told the police that he no longer felt safe around Monica, so he took a gun from his truck. He took it back to her apartment once again. He knocked Monica from inside her apartment behind a closed door. She apparently told him that if he didn't leave, she would beat him and his truck with a baseball bat. But the weird fact is, how did she know that he drove a truck? According to John, Monica opened the door aggressively and lunged at him with the bat, and he then removed his gun and shot at Monica from 2 or 3 feet away, hitting her in the neck. He then ran to his truck and fled, and he said he didn't even realise he hit her until he read an article about her death the next morning. He also said he later found his wallet in a pocket he didn't know was in his jacket, and by the way, a baseball bat was never found at Monica's place after shooting Monica. John Casey got scared, so he went to his family home in Childress, and 2 days after killing Monica, John Casey was no longer scared. But he was once again on Backpage and was looking for another trans woman sex worker in Austin. 4 days after killing Monica, John Casey returned to Austin to meet up with a trans woman he met on Backpage, and that's when he was arrested. John Casey's internet search history also showed that he was looking to see how to get away with murder, and he was found guilty by a jury and sentenced to 20 years for the murder of Monica Loera. He tried to appeal his sentence, but he lost. Before I end today's video, I would like to do something that I've never done before, which is just read out a few names, a little bit about these people and possibly what happened to them, and this is just to bring light to the crimes that's going on that people haven't necessarily heard of. I think that this is something that I'll continue to do in the future, because not everyone's case is long enough to make a decent length video. so much hope and enthusiasm that his presence brightened all of our lives. The next victim is Luciano Ruiz, I hope I pronounced that correctly, who was fatally shot into a Baja, Puerto Rico on February 24th. According to Metro, Puerto Rico members of a community knew her as humble and noble. The next victim is Yampi Mendez Arocha, who was 19 and was killed in Mocha, Puerto Rico on March 5th. A transgender man shared his love for basketball and the NBA, donning Miami Heat apparel on social media, and the biography line on his Facebook reads simply, "Humility prevails." Scotland, for a 51-year-old gender non-conforming person was killed in Augusta, Georgia. Friends remembered to fall as sweet and beautiful on Facebook. The next victim is Monica Diamond, a 34-year-old black transgender woman who was killed in Charlotte, North Carolina on 18th of March. Diamond was active in the Charlotte LGBTQ+ community and nightlife community, and was the co-owner of an event promotion company. She also was the co-CEO of the International Mother of the Year pageantry system, a pageant that honours LGBTQ+ mothers. The next victim is just called Lexi. There is no middle name or last name, and she was a 33-year-old transgender woman who was killed in Harlem, New York, March 28. According to reports, Lexi was fatally stabbed in Harlem River Park. Quote, "I really looked up to her because of her tolerance and respect," said Lavonia Brooks, a friend of Lexi. Quote, "Lexi had a beautiful heart and she was very gifted." Brooke also noted that Lexi loved poetry, makeup and fashion. Joanna Miska, a transgender woman who was killed in Baltimore, Maryland on April 11th. According to reports, she was visiting a Baltimore recovery center from Pennsylvania at the time, and Joanna was known for her love of music and taught herself to play multiple instruments. I really apologise for trying to pronounce the next victim's name because I did this a bit of a sugar bot. I hope it is correct. Serena Angelique Velasquez Ramos was 32 and was killed in Puerto Rico on 21st of April. Ramos was killed alongside Leila Pelez Sanchez, who was 21. According to reports, Ramos was visiting the island on vacation and was set to return to her home in Queens, New York at the end of the month. Loved ones are mourning her death, calling her full of life, a happy person and a sincere friend. And on May 1st, 2 men were charged under federal hate crime laws for Ramos's death. Leila Pelez Sanchez was 21 and was killed in Puerto Rico on the 21st of April. Sanchez was killed alongside Serena Angelique Velasquez Ramos, according to reports, and Sanchez had recently moved to the island and was living in the Tejas neighborhood in Las Piedras. On May 1st, 2 Puerto Rican men were charged non-binary person was in Seattle, Washington on the 4th of July. Taylor was participating in the Black Femme March in solidarity with Black Lives Matter and against police brutality. Taylor worked full-time at Urban Animal Veterinary Hospital. Marilyn Caceres was a transgender Latina killed in Brawley, California. Mindy Garcia, an aunt of Caceres, said she loved to sing and dance and never bothered anyone. DOH over was who some reports identify as Tiffany Harris, a black transgender woman, was killed in the Bronx, New York, according to her Facebook Overloved Fashion, listing her career as a personal shopper and posting photos with luxury fashion brands that she loved. On August 13th, a man was arrested on murder charge in connection to her death. Keisha T. Hardy, a 22-year-old black transgender woman, was killed in Baton Rouge, Louisiana on 27th of July. Hardy, a hairstylist, was extremely loved by her community, friends and loved ones, described as loyal, loving, always smiling, the life of all parties, and truly one of a kind. Ron Spears, who sometimes used the name Rocky Ron, a black transgender woman, was killed in Portland, Oregon on July 28th. According to Facebook, she studied at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and was the owner and founder of International Barbie, a Portland-based clothing brand. Leah Rashawn Day, a 28-year-old black transgender woman, died in Cuyahoga, I hope I pronounced that correctly, County Jail in Cleveland, Ohio on August 30th. Leah's death is unacceptable. Increased risk factors such as homelessness combined with racism, sexism and transphobia conspired to lead to a death that should have never happened. Kisam, a black transgender woman, was killed in Lafayette, Louisiana on August 12th. There's not a lot of information out there about this individual, unfortunately, and this is just what I was talking about previously, that some cases there's just no information, but we need to get their faces and names out there just to show that this is happening. Ariane Burnett, a black transgender woman, was killed in Independence, Missouri on September 19th. Her friends and family shared, quote, "If you wanted to have a good day, you need to smile." That Ariane was the person you wanted by your side. Mia Green, a 29-year-old black transgender woman, was killed in Philadelphia on September 28th. Her friends and family shared how her smile was so perfect and so contagious she made me laugh. Michelle Ramos Vargas, a transgender woman from Puerto Rico in her mid-30s, was killed in San German, Puerto Rico on September 30th. Quote, "This level of violence, any violence, is unacceptable. We are not doing enough to protect transgender and gender non-conforming people, especially trans women." Felicia Harris, a 33-year-old transgender woman, was killed in Augusta, Georgia in October. Felicia Angela Enig, a 25-year-old black transgender woman, was killed in Memphis, Tennessee on 25th of October. A licensed cosmetologist, friends and family of Angel remembered her for being very funny, very nice to everyone she met, and such a bright person with a positive spirit. Skylar Heath, a 20-year-old black trans woman, was killed on 4th November in Miami, Florida, and was described as a kind and gentle soul who had such a love for family and close friends. Skylar had a warm personality and a friendly spirit and brought people who knew her so much joy. Uneski Carey Herrera, also known as Uni Carey, a 39-year-old Latina transgender woman, was killed in Miami, Florida on the 17th of November. Was well known for modeling, performing, dancing, and an activist loved by the LGBTQ+ community in Miami. A friend of Herrera described her as, besides being stinkingly beautiful, she was kind and she was good. Asia Jane Foster, a 22-year-old black transgender woman, was killed on November 20th in Houston, Texas, and her death occurred on Trans Day of Remembrance, a day created to honour those in our community taken by violence. Asia was remembered during a candlelight vigil where family and friends described her as a beacon of light in their community. Shayamisha Sims, a black transgender woman in her 30s, was killed on November 23rd in Richmond, Virginia. Sims, who sometimes used the nickname Shay Shay, was close with her family and friends, and they remembered her on social media as good, kind and caring. Kimberly File, a 55-year-old white transgender woman who was killed on 22nd of November in San Jose, California, at a homeless shelter where she volunteered, is remembered by friends and loved ones as a kind and loving person and someone with a twinkle in her eye. Jean Barbie, who might have also used the name Bella, was killed on December 13th in Prashad Allah. On December 18th, Jamal Jaim's family held a celebration of life, including motor card and gathering. On social media, friends and family remembered Jaim as the life of the party, such a bright light and so loving. Courtney King, a 25-year-old black transgender woman who was killed in Chicago on December 25th, loved ones described her as a vibrant